Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you, June 5th, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And on today's episode, we've got Kylie Jenner's surgeon flooded with phone calls after she reveals his secret recipe for boob jobs. I'll share that, plus more in Pride news as Harvey Levin of TMZ shares a very personal story about what the Pride movement means to him, and also more on Pete Hegseth's decision to remove Harvey Milk, a gay icon, from a ship, the name of a ship. So I'll be sharing that and more on Bachelor Clayton as his accuser, Laura Owens, attorney, has been just found to get the story wrong again. He seems to do more harm than good for his client, and he continues to make threats against Clayton and against all of us, really. I'll share that. And a very bizarre and wild story. Is it fan fiction or is it real? Taylor Swift seeks revenge on Blake Lively. An insider reveals her plan to strip Blake of her maid of honor duties. And again, I mean, ladies, you're already planning the wedding. Travis Kelce hasn't even proposed yet. We'll get into those stories and then more on the masked ICE agents as several different raids have been met with protests against them all across the country, really. So lots to get into, all these stories and more. It's happening right now on The Rush. If you know me, you know I love to start with a good animal story. And an elephant caused chaos in a grocery store in Thailand when it walked in and began to help itself to snacks. Have a look at this. Again, the elephants are they're just modern day dinosaurs. And I got to meet a couple of them in sanctuaries when I traveled to Thailand. They're part of the culture, of course. Just don't ride them, okay? Even if they say it's safe for them, man. They shouldn't be in circuses. They're genius animals that are probably smarter than we think. And anyhow, there he is. Just let him have a bite of food. Come on, give him some chips and let him go on his merry way. He's not causing any harm, right? Anyhow, fun story to start the day off. And then Kylie Jenner's surgeon flooded with calls for a boob job. They'll have what Kylie's having. So we covered this, I think, the last couple of days now, following the story of Cheryl Burke saying she's never had plastic surgery. Then we have folks like Kylie saying, I'm not going to hide it. I'll tell you exactly what I got. And like a Starbucks order, she tells the exact amount of cc's and all of that. 445 cc, moderate profile, half under the muscle, 2 shots of espresso, call it a day. Again, I don't know how much that's going to cost, but either way, Garth Fisher needs to up his price because, this is the modern day Oprah. Kylie Jenner is the Oprah of boob jobs, right? So if she mentions it, next thing you know, you're a bestseller. So congrats to him, I guess. All right. Secretary Hegseth orders the Navy to rename ship honoring gay rights activist Harvey Milk. Now, this is a relatively gigantic story, right? Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth ordered the Navy to strike the name of gay rights activist Harvey Milk from one of its ships, orchestrating the change as Pride Month celebrations take place. A defense official said the decision's timing was intentional. The USNS Harvey Milk is one of several ships named after prominent civil rights leaders and activists. A new name has not been announced. Milk was one of the first openly gay men elected to public office in the United States after winning a seat on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1977. He was assassinated a year later. He served in the U.S. Navy from 1951 until 1955. Now, I used to stand in for an actor named Matt Bomer. Matt Bomer was also in a movie, or I should say miniseries called The Normal Heart, I believe it's called. And I worked on that, just doing background work, and I got to see a bunch of gay men come together to shoot a movie about the AIDS epidemic where they were starting to get rights and starting to be have their voices heard and their stories told. It was a very emotional thing being on set, seeing grown men cry and lock arms as they kind of reenacted a very pivotal time for the gay rights movement. I say all of this because Matt Bomer is not one to talk publicly about much. He never had to come out of the closet as he wasn't some A-list celebrity, and his friends and family knew who he was, and that's all that he needed to do. But he says disgusting. And during Pride Month, wow. Matt Bomer continues, Harvey Milk was an actual Navy veteran and a national hero. Our president deferred 5 times due to bone spurs. This is not the flex you think it is, Fox TV host, who is now our Secretary of Defense. I wanted to share in its entirety a clip from Harvey Levin, who discusses his story. I got to be honest, I didn't know Harvey was gay. And I think that's a testament to where we are in society, or where I thought we were, where it doesn't matter who you decide to love. That shouldn't matter. And Harvey Milk being a gay rights leader shouldn't matter. And he still served in the U.S. Navy. He's got an integral part of American history, and we can't be rewriting that. Here's the entire 4.5-minute clip from Harvey Levin.
Would like you to indulge me for just a couple of minutes, because I want to tell you a story about me and how Harvey Milk made a difference in my life. So early on in my life, when I was a teenager, I realized that I had a secret that I felt I had to keep, my sexuality. And I hid it, and it became the center of everything. That the most important thing for me was to hide that. And that every aspect of my life was affected. With my friends, with my family, I had to pretend that I was somebody other than who I was. And I had to act on that. And it affected my entire life. For years, I would cut off friendships when I got too close to a friend because I could not expose that secret. I was ashamed. And I got to tell you, I was in the Air National Guard, and it made it clear there that if they ever found out, I would be dishonorably discharged. So I hid that. I want to talk about Harvey Milk because he came along in the 70s and he showed incredible courage. He was an openly gay man who was proud to say he was. He was fighting for basic rights to be who you are. And Harvey Milk did this, by, protesting and doing things that people didn't do back then. And he got elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and became a leader there until he was assassinated. And Harvey Milk helped me become myself and become who I was, and kind of unlocked a lot of those things that I was hiding in my life. So when I heard that Pete Hegseth wanted to remove his name from that ship, and not just remove it from the ship, but do it during Pride Month. The plan is to do it in about a week, according to military.com. And it was intentional to do it during Pride Week. They have seen memos, according to military.com, that they intended to do this during Pride Month. Just take that in for a second. During Pride Month, they wanted to make that statement. So I got to say that there is something in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. There is something in the 14th Amendment about the right to equality. Whatever you think of DEI, this isn't DEI. It's not. This is just about equality. It doesn't mean that I ever got a job because I was gay, because I didn't. It doesn't mean Harvey Milk got it. In fact, I think Harvey Milk got a job in spite of being gay. So the idea that this veteran, this Navy man who served in South Korea, is being taken off this ship, and the reasoning behind it is that Hegseth wants to get back to a wartime culture. It suggests now that gay people are not fit to serve in the military, because that's the only takeaway I have here. It is the only takeaway, that gay people aren't fit to serve. If you're saying getting back to a wartime culture. So I guess the next thing is banning gays from the military, and that somehow gays are not capable of becoming part of a wartime culture. This is nothing but despicable and homophobic. You cannot argue this is not a homophobic move. Hegseth, this is homophobic, and if Donald Trump is signing off, it is homophobic. You cannot get around that.
Yeah, so look, I don't have much I can add to it other than to say I wouldn't mess with the gays, because the gay culture, they have fought for their rights. They have fought to be recognized. They have fought to be able to share love, to hold hands, to even kiss in the street. And that culture that has fought for love, that is not one you want to tear down, because love is much stronger than fear. And I really do hope that this is a victory for our country, in that there'll be enough momentum to stop this very symbolic and disgustful, like he said, homophobic act. All right, take a quick break. We'll be back with more. We got Taylor Swift on the way, and we got Clayton Echard updates. Those next. All right, Bachelor Clayton Echard has had to deal with an insane lawyer. The lawyer for Laura Owens has kind of been batshit, as he has gone to bat for a proven scam artist, and he's having to delete comments as he's being exposed in real time. Seeking justice for all victims of Laura Owens on Twitter says, "We didn't think it was possible, but David Gingras just exposed more lies from his client, Laura Owens, in his comments on his latest YouTube video. Now Gingras asserts that the $450,000 Laura referenced in her affidavit, part of petitioner's response to respondent's amended motion in relief based on fraud filed April 26, 2024, was not her personal funds, but actually came from an investor. Unfortunately, in Laura's affidavit, she specifically states, I had almost 450 grand in cash in my checking account as shown below." So yeah, this is actually pretty wild. People are calling out David Gingras. Now, Laura Owens lost to Clayton Echard. She owes him, I don't know, $180,000, however much it is. And she shared with him, which was probably photoshopped, but a document that said that she had $500,000 in her bank account. So David Gingras, this absolute fraud and phony of a lawyer, says, you don't know the facts. The $400K was from an investor, which Clayton was fully aware of. So he kind of just digs himself in a hole here. And, and again, I don't know why he's going to bat for somebody who's not even paying him. He never knew this person, and she's obviously been charged with 7 felonies by Maricopa County. Will he lose his law license over this? Maybe. But he says when the deal fell through because Clayton lied to Laura and never submitted the purchase offers, and that was because Clayton was actively avoiding her because she was going insane. The investor kept their money, thus Laura can't use it to pay Clayton. As for Laura's $200,000 income, that was the revenue her podcast earned in the past, which she split with her mom. Sadly, JFC, Justice for Clayton, harassed Laura's advertisers, resulting in the podcast income vanishing. So no, Laura is not going to pay Clayton, and says not going to pay Clayton and Woodnick because she can't. Clayton and Woodnick set out to destroy Laura, and their plan worked. Hopefully, when all this is over, Clayton will end up writing Laura the biggest check you've ever seen. Fingers crossed. Gingras, go F yourself. This guy is such a phony. What a fraud. This is the guy who said that he was going to have me homeless by the end of the year, which passed several months ago. Threatened to sue me for $120 million, tried to bully me with emails when literally he sent me an email trying to say that he had made people go homeless. The guy's a Looney Tune, an absolute quack. And then he says, I'm going to be offline, so I won't be responding to people. Then he posts this type of stuff. He is the type of guy who just lays a giant fart in an elevator. That's the kind of stuff that this guy pulls. Just absolute horseshit. And it's funny because, people are calling him out on it. I mean, look, this is the actual document that Laura Owens showed Clayton Echard that she had a money market account with $449,970 in the account. She showed this to him to convince him to work with her to buy her a home. Why? Because she wanted to blow him and then date him. But when he dumped her, she claimed she was pregnant with twins. Of course, that was never true. And we exposed this entire lie. When this thing goes to a trial, this lawyer's going to look like an absolute clown show for the world to see. We already know it, but he's going to look absolutely foolish, and we have all the receipts to prove it. Isn't it wild? When you're telling the truth, it's so easy. You know what I mean? But when you're trying to live and die by all the different lies, hogwash. David Gingras, get a new hobby. You lost this one. All right, let's go to Taylor Swift. Blake Lively, her former best friend, Taylor Swift. This is what Maureen Callahan had to say, whoever the hell that is. She writes for the Daily Mail, I guess. She's added to this bizarre story that Taylor Swift isn't just ghosting Blake Lively, she's setting her up for cruel revenge. How about this for a title? Taylor Swift ghosting Blake Lively is just the start. A very specific public revenge is coming. It'll be deliciously cruel. Now, what does that mean? Is she gonna, could you imagine Taylor Swift writes a hit song about her cuckoo friend? Only the loss of one person, it seems, is enough to knock some sense into Blake Lively, and that is Taylor Swift. Blake has been cut off at the knees, has become a social pariah, and quite likely has her number blocked by Tay-Tay. If she hadn't gotten the message before, Blake surely gets it now. Don't drag Taylor Swift into your legal messes. It's also juicy, so catty, so satisfying. If Swift would just unleash her inner bitch more often, not the soft focus one on her albums, but the real 7th grade mean girl inner bitch, she'd be a lot more interesting. Speaking exclusively to the Daily Mail, an insider spilled this highly detailed and humiliating account of Lively's constant pathetic overtures to her one-time BFF. Now, this reads like fan fiction, but we're not getting anything public from Taylor Swift to say otherwise. So they go on to say it's been a never-ending data and document dump, much of which has arguably supported Baldoni's version of events. As I wrote recently, if Blake had any sense at all, she would have sought to settle this behind the scenes, retreated from public view, never a better time than now, with the eyes of America turned toward the Diddy trial, and staged a humble comeback at an appropriate time. Instead, she pressed on, and her most famous and powerful friend, Taylor Swift, wound up getting subpoenaed by Baldoni's legal team. No one subpoenas Taylor Swift. In trading that scandalous info that Taylor's godmother to 3 of Lively's children had allegedly been threatened with blackmail by Lively herself, Scott Swift not only got his daughter's subpoena dropped, but preserved her reputation. Imagine Lively's terror, not at being sued for $400 million or the damage she risked doing to her own very mediocre career, but at losing Taylor Swift and access to her A-list circle. Picture Lively over the weekend, weeping into her organic matcha latte as Swift celebrated buying back her masters while all her famous friends cheered on social media, posting pics and vids with her, making it very clear that Lively isn't wanted anymore. Swift slid the knife in further by very publicly dining with Dakota Johnson last Thursday in New York, and then on Saturday donning $36,000 diamond earrings to have dinner with Selena Gomez at Midtown's Monkey Bar, a media elite hangout. That's Swift telling Lively what's what. Supermodel Gigi Hadid has also reportedly broken with Lively, who was apparently not invited to her starry 30th birthday party back in April. Gigi has always had a closer friendship with Taylor. So they get into all of that, that Hadid and Swift telling Lively she's been usurped. There's a new maid of honor in the wings for the Taylor-Travis nuptials, and Blake's invitation will surely be lost in the mail. That may be the cruelest cut. Again, reads like fan fiction, but there's nothing to kind of call this out and say that there's a different story to be told. You can bet Lively assumed she'd be maid of honor, that her daughters, Swift's godchildren, would be flower girls, that it would be Lively holding court at America's royal wedding. The photos she could have posted to social media, the A-listers she'd have been schmoozing with, the connections she could have made, the gowns she would have worn, the glowing media coverage she would have received. Instead, Lively took yet another hit this week when it was reported she was moved She has moved to drop her emotional distress claim. How karmic. The woman who allegedly threatened to reveal her famous best friend's secrets now fears hers being spilled out in the open. We all know who and what Swift's next album will be about. It's practically writing itself. And fans or not, who isn't dying to hear this one? Yeah. All right. I mean, hey, I already like Taylor Swift, but now I'm all on board. This is wild stuff. Absolutely wild stuff. Well, shout out to my friends in Florida. It is approaching hurricane season. And a South Florida meteorologist says he can no longer predict hurricane season due to federal government cuts. Oh boy, this is not a good thing. Have a listen.
As you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I'm not sure I can do that this year, because of the cuts, the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind.
Jeez, they're not going to have the hurricane airplane flying? Listen, I live in tornado country, Tennessee, and we've already seen issues here where, you don't even know, you're not getting accurate information about when a tornado's coming. We're seeing the same thing. We're seeing literal YouTubers online doing a better job of tracking these things than the government. And look, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing indeed. Well, we've been covering the ICE agents that are masked and the sort of residents that are pushing back against their demonizing and terrorizing different neighborhoods. Well, video shows residents pushing back as federal agents raided 2 restaurants in Minneapolis on Tuesday. This Minneapolis story is pretty wild. Have a listen.
You are watching residents push back as federal agents raided 2 restaurants in Minneapolis yesterday. Armored vehicles blocked off streets as officials dressed in bulletproof vests, masks, and helmets stormed in. CBS News Minnesota reports the locals believed this was an immigration raid. Local officials, though, claim that the operation was actually about drugs and alleged money laundering. No arrests were made.
Well, I mean, clearly it was a big failure because there's a lot of people speaking out about what went down. And here, have a listen to this.
In light of the federal action that took place yesterday, I wanted to make sure that everybody in our city knows exactly where we stand. We stand with our immigrant neighbors. We stand with our undocumented neighbors.
And by the way, this is the mayor of Minneapolis.
Minneapolis Police Department and the city of Minneapolis were not involved in the federal action that took place yesterday. Our involvement was limited to keeping people safe once there was a standoff between protesters and federal enforcement. Moreover, the federal action that took place yesterday was not an immigration-focused action. We needed to make sure that once that action took place, which again we were not involved with, that we were taking care of people and making sure that people in our city were safe. No arrests took place.
Ayer no hubo ningún arresto.
And we have been told that this action, not related to immigration enforcement, but was related to money laundering and drug trafficking.
All right, so this is just crazy, right? The country is so on edge that it's not even an immigration issue, but they're rolling in tanks into American cities. Now here we have business owners confronting masked agents.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Show your face.
2 construction company owners recorded as masked agents began detaining a local gardener at his job site. One of the owners pulled into the parking lot and demanded identification from the agents. The owner said one agent said they were looking for a drunk driver.
We have asked for IDs. Can you please tell me that you refuse to give us your IDs?
We don't need to give you IDs.
You don't need to give us IDs.
We do not need to give you IDs.
So how do we know you're federal?
A community member told one of the owners that the man they detained doesn't drive, has no car, and gets around on his bicycle.
This gentleman can barely get in the car. He's being forced in and his hands jammed behind his back.
Yep.
And we have, all they say is they're looking for someone who is a drunk driver, but these aren't the guys.
In a statement shared with CNN, ICE said the individuals in the video, quote, were in fact federal law enforcement officers, and that the man in the video is a, quote, illegally present Colombian alien who violated the terms of his release by failing to report to immigration authorities as ordered.
And of course, people are trying to report to immigration authorities, and then they're getting rounded up when they even go to their immigration hearings. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. But so many people are seeing this, members of their community that were just kind of trying to do jobs and pay their bills and support their family, being rounded up. Is this the America we want to live in? I sound so redundant. It's not the one I want to live in. And people will say, well, Dave, why don't you move out? No, why don't I speak up? Why don't we, shine light on how the ICE is basically abusing, first of all, what they were initially intended to be, which is to find immigrants that were committing crimes. And people will say, well, they're committing crimes just being here. Oh, fuck off. That's not what people voted for. They didn't vote for this. Some guy working in a garden. Are you kidding me right now? And the only reason they're doing this is because one or two people up top, like the Stephen Millers of the world, they want to hit some quota where they kick 1 million people out of their country. These aren't people that are committing crimes. How many times do I have to say this? It's absolutely wild. And it's leading to these protests happening in the streets and, all of the rumors about, you see masked officials. And by all means, someone, if they haven't already, is going to abuse this, put a mask on, pretend they're an ICE agent, and there's no repercussions. That's the world we live in right now. No repercussions. It's really sad to see. And we're going to keep talking about it because that's, it's one of the biggest stories out there. This story of the fabric of our country being ripped apart and all of the sort of effects that'll come out of it. I don't know what else to say about it. It really bums me out. Bums me out to think that this is the world we live in right now, where we're not talking about lowering grocery prices. We're not talking about providing universal health care for people. We're not talking about new mothers getting a real good amount of time off, where they can raise their kids, paid family leave. We're not talking about those things. We're talking about people that are in our country who do have of rights. There are civil rights and liberties for people that are undocumented immigrants, and they're not getting a day in court. When they show up to court, they're getting kicked out. Some of them are getting sent to different countries they've never even been to before. And all for what? All right. We'll be back this afternoon as we continue to round up all your content for you. Boy, this week is just flying by. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.